Hello horror hounds, welcome to my horror house. Last night I was watching The First Power, the Lou Diamond Phillips Satanist serial killer movie, and it got me to pondering about a strange little quasi subgenre that popped up in the 90s, roughly the 90s, late 80s, 90s, and then sort of disappeared again. Now, yes, stories of the killer surviving beyond death and coming back, a ten a penny, that's a standard story type. But round about this period that I'm talking about, there were a small clutch of movies that very specifically had your serial killer captured at the start of the movie and then executed at the hands of the state. So electric chair or gas chamber. And that state-sanctioned execution allows them to transcend the physical and continue their killings with a supernatural, usually occult or Satanist bent, and the protagonist, usually a cop, now has to sort of enter the world of the supernatural in order to try and track down and stop their now supernatural target. I'm thinking movies like in 1989 there were two of them, Wes Craven's Shocker and also House 3. I think it was known as the Horror Show in the States. Both films were remarkably similar premises, but yeah, both of those killers, Horace Pinker and Max Jenke, both got sent to the electric chair, and definitely in Horace Pinker's case then sort of became electricity. Just a year after that was The First Power, where Lou Diamond Phillips catches a Satanist serial killer, and he gets sent to the gas chamber, I think it is, and transcends to continue possessing bodies and using the bodies he possesses to continue his work. And you jump to the end of the decade in 1998, and you've got a really underappreciated gem, a movie called Fallen, starring Denzel Washington, where the serial killer goes to... Do you know what? It's been so long, I can't remember whether it's the gas chamber or the electric chair in that movie. But anyway, it doesn't matter. The killer starts body hopping again. So these four films all include very pronounced sort of execution scenes at the hand of the state. They mostly involve some sort of body hopping as well. And while I was watching The First Power last night, which is a hell of a lot of fun, by the way, some excellent stunt work to recommend it. Some really astounding sort of in-camera stunt work done by stunt professionals. I was finding myself thinking The First Power has got so many weird similarities to Exorcist III. Exorcist III almost gets into this subgenre itself, depending on how restrictive I want it to be. The Gemini killer in Exorcist III wasn't sent to the gas chamber or the electric chair. He was sort of killed in a hail of police gunfire. So it doesn't quite work, but I would not be at all surprised to learn that the writer-director of The First Power had read William Peter Blatty's novel Legion, which was published in 1983, which Blatty would then adapt into Exorcist III a year after The First Power came out. Good folks on Twitter have also pointed me towards a 1987 Rennie Harlin movie called Prison, which does kind of fit the bill. It seems to stand a little apart in as much as the guy getting sent to the chair in prison, in the movie Prison, is wrongly convicted, and the governor knows that he's executing an innocent man. So there's a sort of vengeful spirit, ghost aspect to that, where beyond death, that executed inmate is getting a sort of righteous revenge on the governor. Someone on Twitter also pointed me towards, and a friend on Facebook pointed me towards, a 1988 movie called Destroyer, which I hadn't heard of. And having a little look into that, it seems as though the killer in that movie went to the electric chair and got jolted, and then there was a power cut, so people thought he was dead, but he didn't actually die and survived and stayed living in the prison grounds to continue killing people. So again, sort of on the sidelines of this weird subgenre that I wouldn't even know what to call it. A friend on Facebook also pointed me towards 1997's Jack Frost, which I haven't seen, but the synopsis online seems to suggest that the killer is on their way to being executed when there's an accident with their transportation. And it sounds more like a Superman villain origin story. I think there's some electricity there during a snowstorm and he gets fused with snow or something. So this weird mercurial subgenre that appeared sort of mid to late 80s and then bled through into the 90s and then just kind of vanished also bumps up into against a lot of other things that seemed to be weirdly common in the 90s, which would be cops going up against the supernatural, specifically the biblical supernatural. I'm thinking about the cop who used to be a priest in the 1995 The Prophecy, going up, finding himself up against rebellious angels and also the devil. How can you forget? I mean, you cap off the decade in 1999 with Arnold Schwarzenegger in End of Days as a cop going up against the devil. I don't know why that would have been a particular obsession in that decade. I can the apocalyptic angle, the closer the millennium gets, I can kind of see making sense. Was there some kind of in the zeitgeist in America, my American friends can tell me, in the 90s, was there some kind of heightened concern or dialogue going on about the death penalty? I mean, this falls way after the Satanic Panic, so I don't think this strange little sort of quasi subgenre fits within some sort of the peaks and troughs of the Satanic Panic. But is it getting engaged with the dialogue that was happening in the country about the death penalty at the time? I'm too ignorant to know and too lazy, frankly, to look it up. A friend on Facebook also suggested Peter Jackson's The Frighteners from 1996, and that absolutely fits the bill. Although tonally it is completely different from the rest of these, and there's not a cop doing the investigations, but yeah, it is about a serial killer that survived beyond the electric chair and is now in a supernatural state, continuing their killings. Friend of the channel, Johnny Restall, went much broader than I had anticipated and suggested, I think from 1967, Frankenstein Created Woman. And yes, that starts with an innocent man being hanged. I'm not sure whether I'm going to necessarily allow it. It's a crazy outlier if it is. I think the reasons for the revenge from beyond the grave in that movie are scientific. Movie scientific rather than movie supernatural. Let's put it that way. So, are there any other movies that you think could fit into this seemingly weirdly sort of late 80s, 90s specific concern of some filmmakers that marries the death penalty at the start of the movie being the sort of gateway of transcendence for our killer to ascend to continue their killings in a more supernatural way? And what might we call this subgenre? Folk horror started essentially with this loose clumping together of The Witchfinder General, The Wicker Man and Blood on Satan's Claw. So I have absolutely no problem hanging a hat on House 3, Shocker, The First Power and Fallen and saying, yeah, that's a subgenre as well. But what would you call it? If you're still here, thank you for watching towards the end. You might want to consider, if you're a horror fan, like I am, you might want to consider checking out my collection of horror short stories, 17 Stories of Death and Desire. It's available in ebook and paperback form on Amazon. It's coming up to its 2-year anniversary, and just yesterday I sold my 200th copy. So if you'd like to be 201 and beyond, I would be ecstatic if you decided to check out 17 Stories of Death and Desire.
I bid you welcome.
I welcome you to my house.
Welcome to my house.
Welcome to my home.